Welcome back. As climate expert Bjorn Lomborg wrote in the Australian newspaper over the weekend, for 3 decades, climate campaigners have fought to make fossil fuels so expensive that people would be forced to abandon them. Their dream is becoming a reality. Energy prices are spiralling out of control and soon will get even worse. Energy costs, reports Lomborg, are up 26% across industrialised economies last year alone and will rise by another 50% this year. While Western governments want to blame it all on Russia's war on Ukraine, Lomborg says prices were already rising because of climate policies designed to choke fossil fuel investment. We've got that here, of course, in Australia, with coal mines struggling to get capital to start up and coal-fired power stations unable to get bank finance to keep ageing generators working. Since the 2015 Paris Agreement, Lomborg wrote, the world's 1,200 biggest energy corporations have slashed capital investment in oil and gas by more than 2/3. And as a result, huge price rises are the inevitable result of forcing more energy out of an increasingly starved system. Bjorn Lomborg reports that even with its $1 trillion subsidies, wind and solar deliver just 1.8% of global energy supply. 1.8%. Even more worrying is that for all the trillions spent, as Lomborg makes clear, the UN's International Energy Agency finds fossil fuels will still provide 2/3 of global energy use by 2050, only a very modest drop from the 79% they provide today. So what's all the net zero pain about? And given the new crisis in Europe, how much of the green agenda are they actually committed to? Or, in reality, are they winding it back? Joining me now for a discussion about the myths and facts in all of this is the Australian's environment editor, Graham Lloyd. Graham, let's start, if we can, this staggering statistic that Germany currently spends more on its climate policies every year, 200 billion, which is more than it spends on education, police, the courts and prisons combined. And what's worse is that the spending isn't achieving what it set out to do, and in fact there's a growing realisation that Germany needs to put fossil fuels back in the system if they're going to avert an energy crisis. This all started a lot earlier than when Putin rolled his tanks into Ukraine in February, didn't it?
Yeah, hi Peter, it did. And really the sort of initial call preceded the war in Ukraine, and it came when there was a drought in wind all across Europe during the last summer. So reserves of gas that would ordinarily have been stockpiled to use in winter were used due to the absence of renewable power, which set up a cascading disaster that has now resulted in dramatically higher prices, fears that there are going to be shortages and blackouts, and a mad scramble across Europe to return to coal, gas and other things. And it's interesting, if you look at Lomborg's analysis, he is saying, well, for all the money that has been spent, there's been very little return. That is most evident in Germany, but it's all down to an evangelical desire to have renewables at the expense of everything else. If you look at the situation in Australia, where there's been a lack of exploration for gas in particular, that is mirrored right across the European continent. They rejected the great advances that were made in the United States with shale oil and gas. And even though they have the reserves, they haven't been able to exploit them. This is what's led really to a global shortage of the commodity. And, there's a discussion in Europe as to what extent Russia has pre-planned a lot of this by encouraging people to campaign against resource development in their own countries.
Yeah, that goes to Russia's, the allegations about Russia and its campaign on climate and using the internet to drive the climate hysteria, knowing that this would be the end result. Interestingly, in the whole circumstance of Germany, I found some analysis from their energy regulator that was published recently. Fascinating, if not terrifying. They put out a whole lot of different scenarios, but in all of them, in 6 out of 7 of the scenarios, Germany runs out of gas completely in most of them, and in 3 of them, they run out of gas as early as February. Now, it's supposed to be the economic powerhouse of Europe, but they can't be without power. So what's the plan?
Well, they're really desperate to find a plan, and to the extent now where the Greens and others are saying, well, we need to return to coal, we need to return to nuclear, we need to admit that the transition is not gone as smoothly as has been claimed in the past. It's incredibly expensive, and really German industry has been complaining for many, many years that it's at a significant disadvantage to the United States and other places that have lower fuel costs. That's something that's being squandered in America as well. But the ultimate destination you're seeing now in Germany, where it is the industrial powerhouse of the continent, but it's under a lot of pressure.
And it's not just Europe either. I mean, look at Japan. They're struggling through a heat wave at the moment, and 37 million residents have been told they've got to turn off the lights to avoid power failure. The common denominator here is we're talking about countries that have all signed up to net zero but impoverished themselves in terms of energy.
Yeah, we're really relearning the lessons of the OPEC oil shock crises of decades ago. Energy is power in the true sense. And I think governments that have forgotten that are really have exposed their citizens to great peril.
Graham, thank you for your time as always. We'll keep right across to what's not just happening here in Australia but overseas. Hopefully we can shame some people in this country to get real about energy.